And let's just take a moment together to arrive a little more consciously into this space. So just settling yourself, gently closing the eyes if that feels okay. Starting to notice and tune into your breath. As you tune into and observe your breath, you have a sense of settling in terms of a feeling of any effortfulness starting to dissipate. Effortfulness in the body, in the breath, and effortfulness in the mind. Can you have a sense of dropping into the place within you from which you simply observe, in the sense that observing, that act of observing itself is not an effort. It's simply what that part of you or that place within you does. It's watching the breath. Bringing your inner gaze now to the space in front of your closed eyelids. So eyes remain closed and feel that you are gazing at the space just in front of your closed eyes. So there is still a sense of awareness with the breath and a sense of your inner gaze being focused on the space in front of your eyes. Just take a moment here, noticing whenever your awareness has drifted away from the breath or whenever your gaze has drifted away from the space in front of your eyes, and using that noticing to keep coming back. And perhaps you might imagine the space in front of your eyes as being like a large blank screen that you are gazing at. And can you now start to allow to come up on that screen the concept of tapas. So just let that appear on the screen in whatever way and whatever form or forms it appears. And just notice any expectation coming up in the mind, any judgment or response. Can you just allow anything that flows in response to contemplating the concept of tapas to appear and be on the screen? Maybe it's images, maybe it's words, perhaps it's feelings, thoughts, memories. Just continuing for a moment to gaze at the screen, to be really present with whatever is on the screen now. All of the things, maybe it's one thing, maybe it's many things. Be present with the concept of tapas, with your response to contemplation of the concept of tapas. Now letting that go, so letting that fade from the screen, letting go of gazing at the space in front of the eyes, just keeping your awareness still with the breath. Whenever you're ready, so take your time in your own time at your own pace. Whenever you're ready, gently opening the eyes. So I just muted you both whilst we were doing that. So you'll need to unmute yourselves so that we can discuss. And yeah, an invitation really to both of you to share what your experience has been with the concept of tapas this month. And maybe it's around what you feel you've learnt about yourself, or what has been really present for you, or where you've noticed it playing out in your life, or where you've noticed where it isn't present in your life. So inviting you both to share. Elizabeth, you're off mute. Do you want to share first? Yeah, you as in your, yeah, I can hear you. Trisha, you're still on mute, just so you know.
I'm not sure why, but I found this one particularly challenging. And not as easy to sort of decipher, because I think it's quite a big one for me. In as much as I think it's brought up habits that don't serve me well. And I think it's brought up where I put my energy in perhaps more difficult situations. It's made me realize that joy, that the present doesn't last, and you let go. The present is letting go, and there's been quite a lot's been going on this month, particularly for me, of thoroughly enjoying and then letting it go. And that is probably newish, but it's I'm getting much better at it, of things that it's the outside influences that aren't serving me well, and when I come back to it, it's actually it's back to discerning what actually is going on inside me, and looking at that, what is actually going on inside me for these I suppose there's certain changes that have been going on, but I do feel I'm moving on. You know, I mean, I came back very late last night. You know, I've had 2 days where I went to Mark and it's the first time in 21 years, possibly, that I visited Mark and Sam, and there were no grandchildren. That's a change for me. And then yesterday, I spent the afternoon and early evening with Luke, who was 16, while Anne and Pete went and took their first child to Loughborough. So it was quite a lot of charged emotions. And yet, and there was Luke explaining how it was feeling. And we were wandering around the house, and he went into Daniel's bedroom and wondering, you know, he was just sort of picking up little things and putting them down. And I was watching him and thinking, yes, I can understand where you're coming from here, because there was an area of deep something inside you, and yet this will not last. You let go of it, and you so I suppose I'm quite full of that at the moment. But I do feel now, you know, these four grandchildren who are at university are all now much more, well, they're more settled, and yes, it's been quite challenging for me, I think, because bringing the ego mind against the discerning, saying, actually, I must let these things go. We move on. Are they serving me well? And what brings me joy? Yes, I think that's it. It hasn't been an easy month, oddly enough. It's not. I don't know why it's not connected as well as some of the others. But oddly enough, I was reading it through this morning and thinking, yes, I can now see more. I can now see it more. So, but I didn't actually come in knowing what I was going to say at all today. So I suppose, but I feel good that I feel, you know, I can now let go of things that have actually supporting Anne, supporting Mark, and in a way that, no, because I know what they've been going through. They don't know what I've been going through. It's different. But very interesting walking around with Luke. I was very surprised. He just went into Daniel's room, and he was just as though he just needed to touch things, but because he wasn't there, he'd been there 18, 9, you know, 16 years. So quite interesting. Yeah. So for me to see it in Luke, it was quite interesting. So
thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for all of that sharing. And what I'm hearing there from you, is a big theme, big experience for you this month is that idea of letting go.
oh.
And you mentioned at one point about discerning, and really kind of noticing that the difference between what's going on inside you and what's going on outside of you. So it's starting to kind of really feel into and more consistently experience that, knowing that there is the unchanging self, and then there is everything else that happens around us. So so I also what I'm hearing from you is that perhaps for you this month, with what's been present for you this month, that perhaps it hasn't felt such an obvious kind of clicking into place in terms of tapas as a concept that's serving you, but it sounds to me like perhaps that's maybe just starting to come through now.
Yes.
And so I would encourage you, which I think is what you're going to be doing anyway, is to really go with that, and also to know that it can, you know, it's also really helpful. It's helpful for us to explore these concepts in whatever way feels open to us and relevant to us. And sometimes that is to be really conscious of it coming up in the moment and kind of putting on that lens of awareness in the moment. And of course, it can also be helpful to look back on things that have happened, you know, recently or further back, through that same lens, you know, not in a sense of then judging yourself at all around like how you responded at the time, but just to allow you to start to get into that habit of seeing something with the clarity that a particular concept will help bring you. You know, different concepts will bring you different kinds of clarity, but you might look back on, you know, and it might be, as you say, there's a lot that's been coming up for you, a lot been happening this month. But I think, you know, this is what strikes me, is that you're not just saying lots has been happening. What you're describing is lots has been coming up for me this month, like in response to what is happening. And that's a different thing, isn't it, to kind of just saying all this stuff is happening, like, and it's happening to me, or it's just happening, you know, like what you're recognizing is there's a lot been coming up for me. So it would be interesting, I think, to you know, put on your tapas lens, and of course you can dip into other lenses as well, but you know, particularly to kind of like get to grips with the tapas concept, and just see what comes up for you there, as well as to, you know, then practice that going forwards, and in particular just noticing where tapas feels helpful for you, and also perhaps noticing where actually you're already practicing tapas. So I remember, I think it was in Saucha at one point, Elizabeth, you sharing that, like, certainly in certain ways it felt like, yes, you already had quite a consistent Saucha practice, you know, just in terms of your environment and habits, in terms of, you know, sort of keeping things clear and uncluttered. And so sometimes it's about recognizing as well what perhaps might be quite a natural mode for you, and that might not feel like much, just kind of going, oh yeah, I already do that, but that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is becoming more conscious about these things that you might have been doing, like you might have been acting in certain ways and having certain patterns of thought, but previously you were doing that unconsciously with no real awareness of the part that then plays in just how you experience everything that comes up for you. So sometimes the invitation is to bring awareness to and notice, you know, where that's already happening.
I think that's right. Just very quickly then, Tricia, but I just think that I came home last night. It was very late, and there's a sort of relief in a way. There's something that I feel, you know, I suppose, you know, whenever I've met the family, it's been so much about universities for so long, and I've just sat, but in there, you know, they wanted my support because they talked to me about it. But I think now I do feel that it's a moving on for me. I think I really do. I think yeah, I think it's another beginning, moving on again, which I think I have been doing. But I think this is, yes, and I think there's both emotion, but actually also I just feel letting go. I just feel this is the time now to really, you know, what is going on in me, and moving on. Yeah. I
Yeah.
do feel that, but I'm not ready to quite do it, but I feel it.
And yes, and that is so helpful to sort of be in that place of awareness, isn't it? And that last thing that you said, you know, we can catch up more on this when we do a coaching session, but I'll be really interested to hear where tapas might where you might find, particularly over the next few weeks, that tapas might play a part in helping you to like keep showing up consistently in you know what you might be experiencing as a kind of like a stepping into a slightly new phase of life.
Yeah,
You know, all of that letting go,
definitely.
like where does that leave you? And so when you know, and what I'm hearing from you and from what you've shared before, that there's a sense of there being quite an important aspect of your sense of self and purpose and role and so on is kind of changing, shifting quite a
Yeah,
lot. So as human beings, you know, we need purpose, you know, we need like some sense of having purpose. So I wonder whether tapas might be helpful to you over the next few weeks, when perhaps that starts to feel a little like, well, where, you know, what am I doing? What am I showing up for? Where, you know, like that, you know, finding that fiery passion, that
yeah,
determination, that will to like, this is what I'm setting my sights on, and this is what I'm committing to. And
yeah.
yeah, with full awareness, not with a kind of like, I'm pushing away how I'm feeling about this,
No,
not at all, of course,
no.
but just to kind of,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. Trisha, are you feeling to share anything? You're on mute. Great.
Just say thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing all of that. And um, it was really, really helpful. And I think, you know, my situation is so very different at the moment for all sorts of reasons, not just Michael's illness and death, but also just what's been happening since I moved here and the changes and things in my life. And I think that tapas was something that was very timely for me, because I was thinking is you know, just now, that I really connected with finding some fiery determination, and I realized that was something that I found difficult to do, and having it, I think, sort of talking about it explicitly was extremely helpful. And what I realized was that it was like a sort of counteraction of what can be a sort of default position of being rather passive and thinking about it quite a depressive sort of situation, and not. And I think after Michael died, and these huge changes and, you know, a multitude of different feelings, that 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 sense of fiery determination was a bit, felt to me at the, you know, is feeling about, I've got choices, there are things that I want to do and changes that I want to make, and that that tapas has just been something that I feel I've been able to try and locate and draw on. And when I've been able to do that, it's been really, really helpful. And I think as I've sort of been coming out of this extraordinary tiredness, which again is like, but it's like a heavy blanket that has been difficult to free myself from, and to think about how I want to use, what I want to do, how I want to use my day. And I think that tapas has been really helpful as the tiredness has started to change a bit, and in enabling me to start saying, yes, this is what I want. These are the changes I want to make. And I think it's come at a time when and I've just come towards the end of all these massive changes in the house, the amount of time and energy that's taken up, that, and this huge amount of the last 4 months, and that now I'm sort of feeling, right, well, actually, I do now have more choices. I have got time to do things. And I think the tapas has been like giving me the energy to think about it and then actually to do it. And I've actually had some really good days, I mean, this week, of thinking, I think it's been a different, helped me to have a different mindset. And I think also just being able to get a bit more active again, physically active, which I think is sort of also reflected the mental activity, which has been helpful. And it started sort of helping me feel a bit creative. I mean, in the most basic sort of ways, but actually about wanting to clear my spaces a bit. And I actually enjoyed cooking on Tuesday, of doing a batch lot of cooking. And because I'd got a bit more energy and I had the time to do it, instead of it being a chore, I actually felt that I enjoyed it and had such a sense of a pleasure at the end of having something for supper and something that was going in the freezer. And so I think that the tapas for me has been a really helpful concept at this time to draw on something within myself and think, yes, this doesn't have to be like this, it can change. And it's been really, really helpful.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you for all of that. Yeah, really appreciate everything that you've shared there. And so great to hear how tapas has felt helpful to you over these past few weeks. And one thing that strikes me as I was listening to you, that I think is a really helpful thing for us to kind of really contemplate around tapas, is you spoke a few times about drawing on tapas, so drawing on it from within, which is, you know, that's the idea. It's that kind of fiery energy and determination from within. And so describing that as an experience of drawing on that tapas from within, that's an important distinction to make, I think, between what it could be, like this concept could be easily perceived as. So what I'm trying to say is that with tapas, you are drawing on something from within. What you're not doing is kind of like pushing down or denying feelings of, you know, whatever it might be, feelings of like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to do this, or I've got that heavy blanket, it feels almost impossible to do anything. It's not that you are powering on through and not listening to and honoring whatever is going on and whatever is coming up for you. It's that you're working with yourself, not against yourself. You're drawing on what is already within you. And kind of leading on from that, what really struck me, Tricia, was when you talked about tapas giving you the energy, or we can think about it as you drawing on that energy to think about doing something, to think about it and then doing it. But the point is, and you talked about a mindset shift, and I think this is so helpful for us to think in this way, because it's not always about action, right? You know, like actual external action. And in fact, it all starts with thought, you know, thought leads to action, you know, even if it's a simple decision of like, I'm going to do this now, and then you do it. Always the thought comes first. So I think that's really helpful to think about how we can draw on tapas in order to start thinking, like sort of just shifting our thinking. So particularly when we're in those states where, you know, and I'm like, I can speak from my own experience of depression, where like where the duvet might as well be like an iron blanket, you know, it's that difficult to actually get yourself out of bed. And I think, you know, it starts with that shift in mindset. And again, that's not a forcing, that's not a kind of like, come on, pull yourself together. It's not that at all. It's a drawing on that deep inner strength in order to start to shift a thought, and like maybe by shifting just a little, and it can be really subtle, but just a slight shift in mindset, then all else unfolds and follows.
I think what you're saying, I can really relate to that with this, you know, depressive feeling that I can, you know, I think have probably been all my life has been something that's been around. A lot of the time I have just tried to ignore it and just get on, and so it's not really there. But I think now I'm more able to acknowledge that it's there. Anxiety is there, but actually that drawing on something, well, okay, that might be, but it doesn't have to be dominating. There's actually an ability to change something, and then that seems to lessen the depressive feelings and the anxious feelings, that they become less. So it's like a sort of double whammy, because once you start to shift a little bit, that both the good bits improve and the other bits become less dominant. So I think I can really relate to that in the last few weeks, particularly in yes.
I mean, we can, and as you've described there, Tricia, it's you know, all of the work that we're doing in here is intended to help us to bring greater awareness to whatever is coming up for us, whatever is going on for us, and to be in absolute acceptance, like compassionate acceptance of whatever is coming up for us. And that is a very different thing to kind of continuing to feed stuff that doesn't serve us. But it's also in that, you know, by being in that space of awareness without judgment, we are also acknowledging and honoring whatever is coming up for us, and perhaps recognizing that whatever that is, even if it's stuff that feels like it doesn't serve us, maybe it has something to say, maybe it's something we need to hear, acknowledge. And if we kind of use the analogy of excuse me, being on the yoga mat, it's the difference between and like if we come back to this idea of tapas, it's the difference between powering on through to, I don't know, like come into warrior 3 when actually your hip is saying this is not good for me right now, or your knee joint is saying like ouch, and kind of just ignoring that and going, no, I can do it, like I've got determination. It's the difference between doing that and being really, really mindful as you explore what is available to you in warrior 3 in this moment, like listening to and honoring your knee and saying, okay, let's stop there, or okay, let's get a bit more active here so that that my knee is more supported, or let's adjust here or take support, or whatever it might be. And you are doing all of that, like drawing on that fiery determination, because what you're not doing is saying, oh, I give up. I can't do this, like this isn't for me. So you're kind of saying to your body, like, I hear you, like I acknowledge what you're saying to me, I honor that, and I'm still showing up.
And it's really hard making that determination, really hard.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I find that, I mean, particularly in yoga situations, really difficult.
Yep.
How much to, keep going. And I think it's because I've been very bad at listening to my body. I think it's, it's been a long, long time I've not been in connection with it. So I think it's been a long process of trying to, reconnect with my body and, understand it really, and not just be in the head.
Yes.
So, yeah. It's easier off the mat for me than it is on the mat, I think, because that's so body, obviously, but why it's also been so life-changing to be practicing it. Yeah.
Elizabeth, was there something you wanted to say in response to that?
I just think that this whole thing is because I suppose I'm always been more ego, and I just think listening to Trisha and all the trauma she's gone through, but I think that it's actually what's inside you, listening to what is mindfully. And I think just for me, I just need more time, more silence, more space because that's when I can connect best to what is going on inside, instead of I think I'll sort this because of that. And I now feel on the sort of step of saying, great, I can make time. I want time.
Yeah.
I feel, yes, I do. So I mean, listening to Trisha, everything I absolutely, understand, because I think, but it's this inside, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what we've always done or not done, but I think it's terrific. I feel quite excited, actually.
Oh, good.
I feel
Brilliant.
quite excited that I have moved on. I've done a number of new things, and I feel,
Great.
let the family go, let them get on with it, and yes. So.
And all of this, as we know, is about creating that space for awareness, and as you just said, Elizabeth, that kind of within, and we might think of that as being like that connection with Satya, that unchanging place. I know that certainly for me has a particular resonance. I think if in doubt, come back to that.
Yes.
And knowing and reminding ourselves that it is a lifelong practice, and it does take practice, and it is like developing and then keeping up the strength of a muscle, and sometimes, and it may be that we come to this and that muscle has maybe never been used or rarely been used, and so it can feel really hard, which again, like tapas can be so helpful in keeping us just showing up, and so whether that's showing up on the mat or whether that's just showing up for ourselves in whatever way, and you talked about a double, I think a double whammy, or having that kind of having a multiple effect, and I think that's the beauty of it. We keep showing up, and each time we show up, we kind of expand that capacity to be in that space of awareness. We expand the capacity to practice discernment. So that's come up definitely in the conversations today. I feel, that ability to practice discernment, to know the difference, to know the difference between bringing tapas energy and actually just ignoring your body and powering on through, for example. But that comes up time and time again. Am I in my ego mind here, or am I but even by asking yourself those questions, and this is just a reminder to us all, really, each time we even ask ourselves those questions, like, you know, that is a reminder to us that we are in a greater space of awareness with a greater capacity for discernment than perhaps we had before, you know, we started on any of this.
Just think we've had this journey, haven't we? We've had this journey up till now, as Tricia says, we've had this journey and how we've felt. And this is, I just feel how important it is to just move, however little. I know when I have more time, I feel much more mindful, much more. And it's when I'm busy that I can feel the ego coming in, because just because how to deal with it or get there or whatever. And I just think this course has certainly, but it's a journey, and I'm sort of only beginning on it, really. And I think, you know, all that I can only see that all that has passed that was me is me, but actually far more of what's inside me, what is mindfully going on in me, and letting go of things that aren't serving me, which are multiple, really, but letting go. But it's the awareness. I honestly think it's being aware, which I probably haven't been. I've just coasted along. I've coped. It's all right. But this is why I joined this, because I just had a feeling there's something more, much more, that I can help myself. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just take a moment. In a moment, we'll just take a moment to end the session consciously. Is there anything else either of you want to say or share before we do that?
No, I think ready to go.
Great. Brilliant. Love that. Okay, so just again, just like making any adjustments if you need to in the body so that you're settled, and gently closing the eyes. Bringing your awareness to the breath. And just let that shift of your awareness to the breath be an experience of letting go of anything else that has been in your awareness, anything else that's still in your awareness, any thoughts, feelings that are present. You have a sense of letting those go for now, bringing your full awareness to your breath. There's a sense perhaps of the mind settling, the nervous system settling. And then once more bringing your inner gaze to the space in front of the eyes. And as you gaze at the blank screen, just allowing, inviting anything to come up onto that screen that feels present right now. So just notice any instinct to move into the thinking mind. Can you stay really present and just allow anything to come up onto that screen that feels present right now, that wants to make itself known? And maybe there is nothing. And again, this might be a specific thought or image or feeling, it might be nothing that you could describe or articulate in any way. Just allow anything that comes up to be present. Perhaps there is from that an invitation for there to be an affirmation that you hold in your mind here for a moment that you might revisit throughout the rest of your day. Perhaps not, so not forcing anything. Now bringing palms of the hands together in front of the heart. And taking a moment to thank yourself, to be grateful to yourself for making time for this session, for showing up for yourself. Bowing your head towards your fingertips. Releasing your hands, and in your own time, whenever you feel ready, lifting your head, opening your eyes.